Good afternoon, everybody, and I recently did a poll on Twitter. I only had it set up for 3 hours, and I got you guys to vote what kind of video I should do, and while it only got one vote, you had three choices. A video on the work experiences that I've had, the phobias that I inadvertently have, and nightmares. Now, nightmares that I've had as a child. Now, the vote was 100% for nightmares I've had as a child, and I am going to tell you of them. Now, as a child growing up, I didn't live in the best conditions. I have had things happen to me that I've already spoken upon. And they caused a lot of subconscious upheaval, so to speak. One of the nightmares that I had that was reoccurring was natural disasters. So I would be out in the schoolyard and it'd be a clear day, and then suddenly there would be dark clouds rolling in, and they would then like a tornado or a cyclone tornado, because it was on land, a tornado would just suddenly come down, and maybe I should start from the beginning. So I would go to sleep, I would have had bad day, good day, doesn't matter, and I fall asleep. Dream would start out as me being in school, and and I would be playing out on the tracks and stuff like that with my classmates, and then we'd have a storm suddenly roll in, and then there would be a tornado, and the tornado would inadvertently chase me. I would get home where I would think that I'm safe, and there would be more tornadoes. A few variations of the dream were that the house that I was living in, would be destroyed. There would be mini whirlwinds amongst the tornadoes that were already there. So sort of like a family type thing, with the little ones representing my siblings and stuff like that. There would always be there would always be 6 of them. There would be 3 little whirlwinds and 2 big tornadoes, and they would chase me wherever I went, and it didn't matter how far, how wide I would go, whether I would be in a house, whether I would be in a field, in a place that's just barren of houses. There would be areas where I'd be in suburbia and stuff like that too, but the nightmare was always about the tornado itself. There was always some sort of natural disaster that would occur that would bring me so much terror, and it was always really sudden. Another nightmare I had that was reoccurring during my childhood was what I label as the grabber. So I would be asleep, I would be in the nightmare, it would start out as I'm laying in bed about to go to sleep, and I would have a dog or a puppy sitting close by the bed. I would go to sleep in my nightmare, and then I would wake up and the puppy was gone, and all that was left behind was blood, a little pile of blood and bones picked clean. Now, I would get out of bed and I would have this feeling of apprehension or tension in the air, and I would slip, instead of getting off of the bed and slipping my slippers on in my nightmare, I would reach with my foot underneath the bed to get my slippers, and a hand, or what felt like a hand, would grab me and pull me under the bed slowly. I would get away from the thing under the bed, and I was running in the nightmare to wherever my family was, which was at the time in the hospital. Something had happened to my sister and they were all there. I would run up to them in total terror, and my mother in the nightmare would tell me to go home, that I wasn't welcome and that I was just to leave and go home. I would get home and I would feel very tense, and it was just like this really intense fear or terror inside of me as soon as I walked through the front door. I would get inside and I would go up the stairs. Now, normally I wouldn't have gone into my parents' room for any reason, but I felt like I needed to go into that room, and when I did, there was a lump in the bed. As soon as I got close to it, it jumped out. Now, this thing was completely invisible save for eyeballs and teeth. So it was just a set of teeth and eyeballs. I would run and then somehow I would end up back home, and this is where the nightmare gets a little weird. Could explain my sense of humor, but I would come back home and this invisible thing, save for the eyes and teeth, would be standing in the middle of the room. Now, the room had changed from it just being my room to my sister's and my room. And it would be standing there, and it would have a toilet roll around its middle, and it had said to me that it was wearing a dress, or how do you like my dress? And we would get into this thing and I got into an argument. I would say that it's a toilet roll, and it would fire back with, no, it's a dress. And I don't know, for some reason my family came back home in the nightmare, and my sister, who I was sharing a room with at the time, came into the room and started arguing with me that it was a toilet roll, not a dress. And the grabber would say that it is a dress, and the argument, and I got so weirded out by that point that I just woke up. Another nightmare I've had was the end of the world. So generally speaking, it's a zombie apocalypse. I chalk that up to watching way too many zombie movies, and in the dream, or nightmare dream, it really depends, because in this instance it was a dream. It was a very lucid dream. I would be back with my parents, and there would be an outbreak of some sort of virus and people would return from the dead. So the recently dead from the virus would come back as moving corpses. Zombies. Am I right? Zombies. But the whole time I was in the nightmare, I had this sense of dread and terror, and I would get chased. My family would be eaten, or they would somehow survive, and I would go into a supermarket and go into like drainage pipes, or one time in the nightmare I had actually gone down the toilet and come out through somewhere else, and I had been running, and the scene changed from my childhood place where I had grown up to where I had been living in Canberra, and then it would change to like not a suburban area, but it would change to somewhere where there was lots of buildings and they had been abandoned in the need to get away from all these zombies. And I would hide in a closet, and I remember this very distinctively because it was one of only maybe a few times that I had dreamt lucidly. I was in the closet, and a horde of zombies was outside of the building. One of them had come in and tried to get me, but for some reason my subconscious changed my body to I'm not going to say an angel figure, but I grew wings and I flew off above the zombies, and I started laughing hysterically as if to say, haha, you can't get me anymore. And a lot of the nightmares that I've had usually revolve around family, or they revolve around whatever emotion at the time I had been bottling up. So for me, a lot of the emotions I had bottled up were anger, disappointment, confusion, feeling of intense fear that I had in my waking life, and just generally feeling like I had no control. But in the instance of the zombie apocalypse nightmare, I had some semblance of inner control or peace, or something that made me dream lucidly about that sort of thing. Now, these nightmares that I have told you about, of the the first two I had told you about were reoccurring for many, many years. I still don't understand why they had happened, why I had the dreams that I had, but I have read up on them, the meanings of certain aspects of them, and it generally points to waking life being destructive or emotionally upheavaling, and generally not having any sort of control over emotions, or someone being abusive, or someone forcing me, or forcing people who dream of these things into a corner. So most of my childhood I did feel cornered. I didn't feel like I was a part of a family background, so to speak. But enough with the whole speaking of family issues. That's dirty laundry that doesn't need to be aired out here. But yeah, a lot of the nightmares were reoccurring. I have not had many nightmares since. One of the nightmares I did have soon after leaving leaving my mother and siblings and my father was that I was back there, and that whatever had happened previously while I was there in my waking life was much worse. That I had inadvertently caused so much hurt and to view me as something to be treated like shit, basically. In the nightmare, I had come back after maybe a week or two of being away, and my mother was worse than ever. She would, instead of holding back and only yelling at me, she would physically abuse me, and I never fit in completely while I was back there, but then I would wake up and I'd realize that I'm somewhere else and that I was safe and that nothing bad was going to happen to me. And it took me a while to realize that I was also feeling homesick, so to speak, if that's even a thing. I know it is a thing, but coming from where I once was, it didn't really feel that way, but I still felt a connection of safety, of slight happiness, of being protecting or protected of while I was there. But since then, I've not really had nightmares. I have dreams sometimes, but if you guys would like a video on that, I do suggest leaving a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. But other than that, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, night, or afternoon, depending on where in the world you are. Bye!